We go to the Boomer Jacks Bar and Grill Hotline. You can find him on Twitter at Gehlken NFL, covering the Dallas Cowboys for the Dallas Morning News. He is Michael Gehlken. Michael, what's going on?
Hey,
Michael.
Good evening. How y'all doing? Good seeing you guys.
Doing well. Appreciate you hanging out with us here on this Thursday night as the Cowboys get back on the practice field today ahead of their matchup on Monday night with the Los Angeles Chargers. As you observed practice today and were able to be in the locker room with the players today, what was the vibe and the feeling that you were getting from some of these guys, knowing what kind of difficult week it's been since obviously losing to San Francisco on Sunday night?
I think the feeling more than anything I got was it's a new week. I mean, obviously, guys were very disappointed, have been very disappointed. Obviously, they wish that 42-10 loss to the 49ers would have gone a lot differently. But the fact is that it's over, and the Chargers are coming. And in terms of on your schedule, you got to head back to California. And if you're going to spend all week that should be spent worried about the Chargers and still thinking about what you didn't do against the Niners, then you're really missing the point of what the NFL is about. So I think these guys are human, and there's some measure of them that Niners loss stuck with them. And, there's reminders of it across the locker room. Leighton Vander Esch is no longer, going to be on the roster here with his impending placement on IR. Same thing for special teams captain CJ Goodwin. Guys are banged up, but they understand that, they got to move forward.
You know what? Well, I saw Michael earlier in the locker room, and Michael, I was getting the same sentiment, and it started when we were standing there talking with Tony Pollard, because he took some very direct questions, and he was like, we've turned the page. We've turned the page, and we got our sights set on the Chargers, and he addressed every question. It wasn't like he was flinching, and then you go in the locker room, and all the guys were talking about whatever you wanted to talk about. But like you said, they're through the grieving process. That was 24 hours ago. They're marched on to the other thing. So, Michael, what I was going to ask you was the way the Cowboys are trying to play complementary football. Pollard said this, and I want to get your take on it. He said that, if the defense isn't carrying the team, the offense has to step it up. He was saying, I'm paraphrasing him, but he was saying, they know what they need to do.
Yeah, and that's, I think, a big adjustment that needs to kind of happen, where right now the way that the Cowboys have their offense structured, the way they want to beat teams is, they want to control the clock. They want to own time of possession. They want their defense to force quick stops, and offensively they want to drive down the field, get lots of first downs, lots of carries, lots of completions, and just grind teams into submission on both sides of the ball. And the key to that whole equation, other than the obvious of being able to move the football, is that your defense needs to, shut down an opponent. So what do you do when you're facing a team like the Niners and your defense, granted, given some short fields because the offense had turnover issues, but nonetheless, giving up sudden change situation touchdowns, isn't able to keep opponents off the scoreboard. What do you do then as an offense? You have the chunk plays, the explosives. Are you able to convert third downs and just really do a lot of things that the Cowboys didn't do against the Niners? Like, can you win that type of game? We've yet to see the Cowboys. You look at the Arizona game where they're trailing big early. You look at the Niners game, they're trailing. You get to see them, win a kind of a dogfight type of a game because their offense is like, all right, it's that type of game. Let's put up some points. We got that in us.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen that yet, and we're going into week 6 here. So if here we are in Inglewood on Monday night, and the Cowboys are giving up points, does the Mike McCarthy offense have it in it to flip the switch and say, oh, okay, it's that type of game, we can beat you that way too? We haven't seen that yet.
Michael, you study as much film as anyone looking at this team, and offensively, we'll stick there. What concerns you most about what you've seen in terms of, the quick passing game is maybe as an extension of the run game a little bit, and a lack of the downfield elements that we've seen from this team the last couple of years? What have you seen that concerns you most about this offense right now?
I think what concerns me is that it's not one thing. Sometimes it's timing, where the ball needs to be out earlier. Sometimes, I'm thinking of a play. It was, Michael Gallup on the left side of the field. I was actually talking about Dave Lothenberger this play. We're looking at the film. Dave had it on his phone as we were watching practice. There's a play where Gallup has a one-on-one opportunity, and he's just got to be his guy to the inside. And I talked to Gallup in the locker room in practice today, and he's got to do a better job of beating a guy in press man coverage, beating him up the line, with your release and flattening your route out and just being quarterback friendly. This offense, from a schematic standpoint, it's supposed to be quarterback friendly, but as a receiver, you got to make sure that you're executing a point where you yourself can be quarterback friendly on a route that is meant to be. And then I think there's also some schematic elements that, Kurt Warner does a good job of, and then Dak, has to be somewhat, okay, if these are my two options on the play and one's, CeeDee Lamb and another one's somebody else, maybe I should put a little more weight on number 88 and trust for him to get open, because I don't know. I think Gallup does some really good things at times, but there's also some inconsistency to his game that is a bit concerning, especially given the amount of trust and stock that the Cowboys have in him flourishing here now another year off of that ACL. So I think my concern is that it's not just, again, one thing. It's all these different pieces in place, and you can point to the quarterback, you can point to scheme, you can point to the receivers. There's a lot of pointing going on, but ultimately it's each guy pointing a finger at himself, saying, okay, how can I do my part to solve this problem? Again, it's the Niners, and they did an excellent job executing. You're going to get away from it, or get away with it a lot of these weeks on the schedule, but you can't be complacent about what was on film in Santa Clara, and that's got to be the Cowboys' focus moving forward.
You know what else, Michael? I was looking at the way they have to go about business with the Chargers. The Chargers are a high-octane offense, and they have added to that by adding Kellen Moore, who's very creative. He's very clever offense coordinator. I felt like in the playoffs he wasn't seasoned enough, and that's why he is as brilliant as he was. I think in the playoffs he wasn't smart enough to outmaneuver some of these defensive coordinators. But in this regular season game, the Cowboys in the regular season against the New York teams, they didn't have to open up, Mike McCarthy's playbook and do all kinds of things. Do you think in this game that Mike McCarthy's going to have to out Kellen Moore and show that he could do the same damn thing?
I like that. I think there's something to that. Again, if we're going to assume that Kellen Moore is able to move the football, and it's not just him, it's Justin Herbert, it's Austin Eckler, who's back at practice today. It looks like he's on line to play on Monday. It's Keenan Allen. There was out Mike Williams, but overall, there's still a lot of firepower to that Chargers offense. If they're able to put up points against defense here in Dallas, if they're able to do that, then I think there's some measure of it, because there's been a lot of schematic stuff that the Cowboys, that they say, have left on the cutting room floor that they didn't get to use, against some of these other teams because of the score. And so maybe we see, some of what we haven't. And so we have not. We shouldn't act as if we've seen all of the Cowboys offense, all that's in there, all that's been installed, all that they've been working on and honing when their wins have been so out of hand as they have been. So I think each week is a new opportunity to see and learn more about the Mike McCarthy offense. And from that standpoint, it's time to show it, because there's a big difference between going nearby 4-2 relative to 3-3.
Michael Gehlken of the Dallas Morning News joining us on the Get Right with Reggie KG here on your home of the Cowboys, 105.3 The Fan. Turning our attention to the defense, for Dan Quinn, who has seen his defense taken on the chin 2 out of the last 3 weeks, obviously with the Cardinals and then this past weekend against the San Francisco 49ers, what do you believe is his mindset in trying to get this defense rallied back to where they were performing at the first couple of weeks? And do you think he's taking this matchup maybe a little bit more personally, knowing who's on the other side coordinating offense for the Los Angeles Chargers this week?
I think to some level, it didn't matter who the Cowboys were going to face next. It was going to feel personal because of just what happened last week. Yeah. But I think, there's some element of just they want to get back on track. A bit like how they felt coming off of the Arizona game when they felt they got a letdown on film. They weren't flying to the football the way that their standard dictates that they do. It just didn't feel like that was them. And now against the Niners, they just got out executed, and there was a lot of things that were the culprit to that. I talked to Jordan Lewis in the locker room today. He felt like emotionally they were just too high. They made the game more of what it is. So I think, if anything, it's less about the Kellen Moore and it's more about them. Like they forget Kellen Moore, forget everyone else about storylines or that sort of a thing. Like, we got to get back to playing the type of football that the Cowboys feel that they can play. I think that's the message. Let's not let the 49ers game beat us twice. It's something that Dan Quinn has said publicly, and I think that he said that privately as well to his players. Let's keep in mind where our feet are, and get back to the style that we carry ourselves with. Jaron Kearse said we have 12 games to earn the right to play the 49ers again, and so one by one, play your football. That's the mantra that I've kind of picked up.
So what kind of game plan do you think it will take for them to beat the Chargers? A high-scoring game, a low-scoring game? What do you expect to see out of them on Monday Night Football?
It's a good question because, I thought I was going to see a certain Cowboys team last Sunday night, and I didn't see anything close to it.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where the Cowboys are in their season is I'm not really sure what we're about to see on Monday night. I think that the Chargers, they've been pretty inconsistent themselves. I've covered them for 7 years, and not a whole lot has changed. Where there's a lot of games that they could and should win, and then
they're waiting for the coach to fire himself.
What's that?
They're waiting for the coach to get himself fired.
There you go. No comment there.
The crazy calls.
Yeah, but I mean, look, the Chargers are super talented, but defensively, with Micah Parsons, with DeMarcus Lawrence, obviously the Cowboys have plenty of talent on defense too. So whether or not it all comes together and they can rebound, it could be a game where the Cowboys defense is doing its part, or if it's not, then it's going to be a entirely different game. So I don't know what it will be on Monday, but I think that's the appeal for all who are watching it.
He covers the Dallas Cowboys for the Dallas Morning News. You can find him on Twitter at Gehlken NFL. He is Michael Gehlken. Michael, appreciate the time and the perspective, sir. Terrific stuff, and look forward to your coverage this weekend as you get ready for a little bit of a homecoming on Monday Night Football. Isn't that right?
Thank you. And props to my 6-month-old daughter who I've been holding this entire time. It's just about nap time.
Oh, wow.
That's
She's been
awesome.
fantastic. Look at that.
Yes, she has. Not a peep out of her.
I know. She's a trooper. But thanks, y'all, for having me. I appreciate you guys.